Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Mamachari Yamuna Tira Mamachari Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavara Giranagari Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavara Giranagari Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prariva Jakacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prariva Jakacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Gaur Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jaya Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Pranath Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. ISKCON Bhartma Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gora Pramanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayan Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tito Jayam Yuridayat Nastra Preshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who was praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay. All right, so today is November 24th, 2024. And we're reading Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 25, the descriptions of the characteristics of King Puranjana. And we'll be doing verse 8 today. Te tvam sampratikshante.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Sambaretam maya kutaish.
Sambaretam maya kutaish.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Sambaretam maya kutaish.
Sambaretam maya kutaish.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Sampareta maya kutaish.
Sampareta maya kutaish.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Okay, please chant.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Samparetam ayakutaish.
Samparetam maya kutaish.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Smaranto vaishasam tava. Samparetam maya kutaish.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Chindanti tamanyava. Ete tvam sampratikshante. Smaranto vaishasam tava. Samparetam maya kutaish. Chindanti tamanyava.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Ete tvam sampratikshante.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Smaranto vaishasam tava.
Samparetam ayakutaish.
Samparetam maya kutaish.
Chindanti tamanyava.
Chindanti tamanyava. Okay. Anyone else? No? Right, word for word. Ete, all of them. Tvam, you. Sampratik Shante are awaiting. Smaranta, remembering. Vaishasam, injuries. Tava, of you. Samparitam, after your death. Aya, made of iron. Kutai, by the horns. Shindanti, pierced. Utita, enlivened. Manyava, anger. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All these animals are awaiting your death so that they can avenge the injuries you have inflicted upon them. After you die, they will angrily pierce your body with iron horns. Please repeat. All these animals are awaiting your death.
All these animals are awaiting their death,
So that they can avenge the injuries
so that they can avenge injuries
you have inflicted upon them.
you have inflicted upon them.
After you die,
After you die,
they will angrily pierce your body
they will angrily pierce your body
with iron horns.
with iron horns.
Purport. Muni wanted to draw King Prachina Bharashad's attention to the excesses of killing animals in sacrifices. It is said in the Shastras that by killing animals in sacrifice, one immediately promotes them to human birth. Similarly, by killing their enemies on a battlefield, the Kshatriyas who fight for a right cause are elevated to the heavenly planets after death. In the Manu Samhita, it is stated that it is necessary for a king to execute a murderer who will not suffer for his criminal actions in his next life. On the basis of such understanding, Narada Muni warns the king that the animals killed as sacrifices by the king await him at his death in order to avenge themselves. Narada Muni is not contradicting himself here. He convinced the king that overindulgence in animal sacrifice is risky because as soon as there is a small discrepancy in the execution of such a sacrifice, the slaughtered animal may not be promoted to a human form of life. Consequently, the person performing sacrifice will be responsible for the death of the animal, just as much as a murderer is responsible for killing another man. When animals are killed in a slaughterhouse, 6 people connected with the killing are responsible for the murder. The person who gives permission for the killing, the person who kills, the person who helps, the person who purchases the meat, the person who cooks the flesh, and the person who eats it, all become entangled in the killing. Narada Muni wanted to draw the king's attention to this fact. Thus, animal killing is not encouraged, even in sacrifice. Om Jnana-Timirandasya Janamana Shalakaya Chakshura-Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatan Sahagana Raganatam Tam Sajivam Savadetam Savadutam Parajana Satam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishkamvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopeka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Rangi Radhe Vinda Vaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sita Devi Pranamami Haripre Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, let's read the verse again. Iti tvam sampratikshante smaranto vaishasam tava sampareta maya kukaish chindatyuti tamanyava. All these animals are awaiting your death so that they can avenge the injuries you have inflicted upon them. After you die, they will angrily pierce your body with iron horns. So in this verse, Narada Muni is talking to King Prajinabarishad about the killing of animals and the results of that action. Animal sacrifice was something that would give renewed life to the animal, or a human birth. Could sort of make sure that they're everything right, because an animal would and then would come out with a new life. What ended up happening, though, is that people ended up sacrificing animals with the idea just to eat them. They weren't sacrificing the animals to give the animal new life. They weren't sacrificing the animal for any reason other than they wanted to eat it. And that's actually why Lord Krishna came, was to turn people in general, because people were using the Vedas as a way to justify their desire to eat animals. So I have some really nice quotes from Srila Prabhupada, and these are from some chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita, the purport. There are many activities in the Vedic literature which are subjects of contention. For instance, it is said that an animal can be killed in sacrifice, yet some maintain that animal killing is completely abominable. Although the animal killing in sacrifice is recommended in the Vedic literature, the animal is not considered to be killed. The sacrifice is to give new life to the animal. Sometimes the animal is given a new animal life after being killed in the sacrifice, and sometimes the animal is promoted immediately to the human form of life. But there are different opinions among the sages. Some say that animal killing should always be avoided, and others say that for a specific sacrifice it is good. All these different opinions on sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord himself. So in a purport from the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, Srila Prabhupada talks a little bit about Lord Buddha. So Lord Buddha, a powerful incarnation of the personality of Godhead, appeared in the province of Gaya as the son of Angya, and he preached his own conception of nonviolence and depreciated even the animal sacrifices sanctioned in the Vedas. At the time when Lord Buddha appeared, the people in general were atheistic and preferred animal flesh to anything else. On the plea of Vedic sacrifice, every place was practically turned into a slaughterhouse, and animal killing was indulged in unrestrictedly. Lord Buddha preached nonviolence, taking pity on the poor animals. He preached that he did not believe in the tenets of the Vedas and stressed the adverse psychological effects incurred by animal killing. The animal sacrifices as stated in the Vedas is different from the unrestricted animal killing in the slaughterhouse. Because the Asuras, or the so-called scholars of Vedic literatures, put forward the evidence of animal killing in the Vedas, Lord Buddha superficially denied the authority of the Vedas. This rejection of the Vedas by Lord Buddha was adopted in order to save people from the vice of animal killing, as well as to save the poor animals from the slaughtering process of their big brothers who clamor for universal brotherhood, peace, justice, and equity. So we hear now that that's why Lord Buddha came, right? That was one of his missions, was to stop the killing of animals in the name of the Vedas. So when you go to, say you go to the Tyson farm or factory, whatever you want to call it, where they kill chickens, right? Are they doing that as a sacrifice? No, not at all, right? So they're not even giving the pretense of having the justification for it, because people don't even realize that it's wrong anymore, right? At least in the past, people thought, oh yes, I want to eat this chicken or this cow, but let me make sure there's some kind of spiritual reason behind it, right? At least they were keeping up that farce, but now people don't even know that that's wrong. So the general attitude for most people is, and I've heard people say this, if you taste good and you're slower than me, I will kill you and eat you, right? So that's kind of this general attitude that people have. Now there's still some people that do claim to sacrifice their meat in a way. Often people that are worshiping Kali will goddess Kali, they will sacrifice meat to her, goats and things, and then eat them. But the thing is that Kali, she doesn't actually eat meat. She's vegetarian, right? So that seems kind of silly. You're sacrificing this animal for this goddess, and she isn't going to eat it. So I've also heard lately there's a lot of animosity towards vegetarians. It's very strange, right? You know, sometimes I am careful about who I tell I'm a vegetarian because I don't want to get into some argument about it with somebody that just wants to tell me about how it's wrong to be a vegetarian. There's even people that are claiming that being a vegetarian or vegan is worse and more animals than eating meat, right? Now this argument just doesn't make sense. First of all, it is really stupid. But the claim is that, oh, well, when you're tilling the fields, you kill so many field mice and snakes and things like that. Except for they completely forget the animals that you're eating also are also need to eat the food that you're tilling the fields for. So not only are you tilling fields and killing all those mice to feed that animal, but then you're killing that additional animal and eating that animal too. So yeah, I know it's a catch-22 for these guys. Christy, what is it?
All those little curves, they can run away when they hear the
Right.
tractor.
Exactly, they can run away. And even if okay, let's go with their argument for a little bit. We'll just say, okay, yes, you're right. So many little mice and insects are getting killed by the pesticides and things like that. One thing that we have to realize is that part of being a living entity, that the way that we live is that means we have to kill in order for us to survive, whether that's plants or animals or whatever, you know, because it is still, you know, sinful to kill a plant because a plant is a jiva soul, just like we are, right? But there's a couple things that make it a little bit different. One, we want to think about what's going to do the least amount of harm, right? And so there's differing levels of consciousness in the living entities, right? You know, the consciousness of a tomato plant is different than the consciousness of Guranga Prem here. That, you know, that tomato plant isn't going to put up a protest if I try to rip it apart. If I try to rip him apart, he's probably going to put up a protest, and he'd probably win too, because I'm not very strong. So, so there's differing levels of consciousness. But the biggest difference is that we can offer the plants to Krishna as a sacrifice. We can offer the plants to Krishna, and he will accept them and absolve us of the karma from killing that entity, right? Whereas with a animal, we cannot offer that to Krishna as food. We can't. He won't accept it. And so the karma for killing that animal then falls back on you and all the others that we read about in the purport. The person that prepares the meat, the person who sells it, the person who gives permission, and so on. So yeah. So that whole argument of, oh, vegetarians, you know, they kill more living entities than meat eaters, just doesn't hold water. It's not a good argument, but this is what people are saying nowadays. And it's very hostile. So I had a friend who was most of their life a vegetarian. and they worked in the tech sector, and they had a coworker that one day found out they were a vegetarian, and they became immediately hostile, and they started saying how sinful it was that my friend was a vegetarian, and my friend was like, "What? Like that's I don't remember that part in the Bible, it being sinful." And the argument that people always give is, oh, well, it says in the Bible, God gave us dominion over the animals, right? But if you look at what the definition of the word dominion is, it does not mean to lord over and to kill and to bend to your will. No, it means to take care of, be a caretaker, right? So if you're a Christian and you're following the Bible and you hear that God gave us dominion over the animals, that means to take care of them. It does not mean, if someone gives you your baby, then you say, "Oh, will you take care of my baby while I go to work?" Well, you don't think they're going to kill your baby, do you? No, they're going to take care of it. They're going to feed it. They're going to change it. They're going to make sure it's warm, right? You would think that, right? Yeah. Yeah, you would hope so. Yeah. So yeah, my friend's coworker would antagonize my friend, periodically about being a vegetarian, going on and on about how sinful it was. And when my friend told him, like, no, dominion means to take care of, the friend or the coworker seemed a little bit dubious. They were not sure about this. After some talking with this coworker, my friend found out, oh, well, their family had made their living for hundreds of years from being cattle ranchers. And so in their family, that's what they were taught, was that it was sinful to not eat meat. And which makes sense, if that's their living, I make it right. But, people find ways to sort of justify things that I think pretty much every human being subconsciously knows is wrong.
And what about thou shalt not kill?
Right, exactly. Thou shalt not kill. People argue about that too. Oh, I've gotten in discussions with people about that. And I said, oh, well, they just mean, other human beings. And I said, but killing other human beings is called murder, right? I said, you think that God, when writing the 10 Commandments, doesn't know the difference between the word kill and murder, but people, they have this little bit of cognitive dissonance because they know they're killing a sentient being in order to feed themselves. And so they need to find ways to justify it. So yeah, people think there's no consequences, but as it says in the purport, it's the same as murder, yes.
I spend a lot of time in wildlife and nature, and even the meat-eating animals don't gorge themselves and eat more than they have to.
Right.
And they don't eat the cutest little critter they can find. They'll eat like the less cute animals. I noticed that like a bird will eat the lizard instead of the bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
Most.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing about an animal is animals aren't, when an entity has an animal body, they're not making any new karma. They're just living out their previous karma. And so for an animal to eat another animal, that's not sinful because they don't have the consciousness level to understand, hey, this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. But yeah, so as the purport says, it's the same as murder. So let's read a little bit from the Bhagavatam, what it says it happens to people who kill animals in their next life. So this is from the 5th canto. His body as his self works very hard day and the bodies of his wife and children. While working to his family, he may commit violence against other living entities. Such a person is forced to give up his body and his family at the time of death, when he suffers the reaction for his envy of other creatures by being thrown into the hell called Rauvara or Raurava. In this life, An envious person commits violent acts against many living entities. Therefore, after his death, when he is taken to hell by Yamaraj, those living entities who were hurt by him appear as animals called rurus to inflict very severe pain upon him. Learned scholars call this hell Rauvrava. Not generally seen in this world, the ruru is more envious than a snake. Maharauva is compulsory for a person who maintains his own body by hurting others. In this hell, ruru animals, known as Krabyada, torment him and eat his flesh. For the maintenance of their bodies and the satisfaction of their tongues, cruel persons cook poor animals. Such persons are condemned even by man-eaters. In their next lives, they are carried by the Yamadutas to a hell known as Kumbhipaka, where they are cooked in boiling oil. So it's said that you have to go through that for as many times as there are hairs on the animal that was killed, right? That's a long time, you know? And I think a large portion of us here, you know, probably were raised eating meat, you know, and thinking about like, I mean, I'm gonna be there for a long time, you know? But fortunately, when you practice Krishna consciousness, then you're released from that karma. Okay, so that doesn't sound very pleasant at all. So sometimes, though, you do have to kill, right? Sometimes it's necessary. There's certain times that that's necessary. So there are 6 aggressors that can be killed. Does anybody know any of them?
Somebody who, you're defending yourself. Yes.
Yeah, someone who attacks with weapons, yeah. Huh? Yeah, someone who occupies your land, yep. Anyone remember any of the others?
Like stinging bees.
Yeah, I think that's covered under the weapons. Weapon, yeah. Yeah, so the 6 aggressors are a poisoner, someone who gives poison, which would also be certain insects and animals, right? And not to mention, you know, there's always those stories about, usually it's like women that if they kill other human beings, they use the method of poison. That's very common, whereas men tend to use more overt forms of violence. Someone who sets fire to a house, someone who attacks with weapons, someone who plunders your riches, someone who occupies your land, and someone who kidnaps your wife. So those are 6 aggressors where it's justified. And so when it comes to animals, I mean, are the cows doing any of those things to you? Are the cows poisoning you or setting your house on fire? Although, what was it? The Great Chicago Fire was started by that cow that knocked over a lantern. So maybe
That was an accident.
it was an accident. That's right. The cow did not have malice.
In America, they say that the eye for the eye.
Yeah,
In the Bible,
yeah. The eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Yeah,
Maybe he's blind.
yeah. Yes, you're
I
open.
didn't put the lantern in the wrong place either.
Yes, that's right.
Human error.
It was human error. The cow didn't bring the lantern and put it there and then knock it over. So, and the cow is not plundering your riches. The cow is not attacking you with weapons unless perhaps you upset the cow and he's running after you, trying to hit you with his horns. Then you'd be justified. The cow is not occupying your land because 9 times out of 10, the people that brought the cows there purposely. Yes.
As far as occupying your land,
Mhm.
they have a rule that it's a legal law. If somebody moves into your house, they're not squatters, but if they're there for 28 days, you have to go to court to
Yeah.
get them out.
Yeah. So these laws, these aggressors are according to the Vedic laws or Vedic guidelines, which we do not follow. Right? Yeah. Because there's also like you said, yeah, you have to go to court to get people out if they stay so long. There's also laws where people like they take over a property, and if they make improvements on it, then they can petition to have that property be transferred over to them. Yeah, and then there's yeah. You want to say something? What?
Your class is very good. So I was thinking in society, there's no justice for the poor.
Yeah,
There's no justice for the animals.
yeah,
There's no justice for the women who are very suffering. Like all the justice is only for the rich people.
yeah,
So this system.
yeah. This system is what brings that justice, right? Absolutely, right.
You want to live in this kind of system. It's very bad.
Yeah. So, okay, and so we also know that cows are not kidnapping our wives. I hope not. Right? Although sometimes some cows are really cute, but still they're not kidnapping your wife, you know. So there's no reason. There's no reason to kill them. So now in certain cases though, that it is necessary to kill, like, think about mosquitoes, right? I'm sure the Prabhupada has said that, if the mosquitoes are biting you, you can kill them. But if they're not, just leave them alone, So if someone is attacking you, you should deal with it. But if they're not, just leave them alone. And in some cases, we can't, like with the restaurant, we can't let the restaurant become overrun with insects. We'll get shut down, right? We need to make sure that we A, keep it clean so they don't come in the first place, and B, if they do come, we need to get rid of them.
But it's the law of karma. If somebody attacking us, somebody who attacking us, so that we help us to pay our karma.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm just joking. Actually, we should not be in ourselves to pay our karma.
I will bring all the bugs to your house. Okay.
So like you said, stone like mosquito.
Yeah.
Because you have.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Yeah, you can certainly do that, but Srila Prabhupada kill them if they're biting us. So, I had this really interesting thing happen. There was, I really am not a fan of insects. They're not my favorite. I mean, I don't want to hang out with them. I don't like them near me, especially cockroaches. I think most people, they don't like cockroaches. But one time I saw this, there was one of those big cockroaches that come out of the sewer sometime. It was in my room, and they don't come often, but every once in a while there'll be one in there. And so I caught it and I threw it outside. I didn't kill it. I just caught it and I threw it outside. And then like a minute later, I went to leave my room to go get something. And that cockroach was trying to get back in the room. And it was really strange. And I thought, that's weird. Like usually they just kind of run away, but I've never seen them try to get back in. And so I'm like, what is going on? So I keep shooing it out. And then I noticed that there was a little baby. And so then I picked up the little baby and I threw the baby outside, and then the big cockroach stopped trying to get in. And so I think it was trying to get its baby. And so even though I don't like cockroaches, I don't want them around, they still have the instinct to care for them. And I had never seen that before, and I was very, very impressed by that. And so really think about that, when you're having to deal with these different entities, because they're jiva souls just like us. They just have different levels of consciousness. So the other thing is, when it comes to meat eaters, what is baffling to me is, think about not most meat eaters, I don't know what the statistics are, but a lot of meat eaters, they have pets, right? They keep cats, they keep dogs, and they would be horrified if you suggested that they eat their cat or dog. In fact, that was in in this election cycle, right, that was brought up as something especially horrifying. There was some claims that immigrants were eating cats, right, eating pets, eating people's pets, right, and that would prove to be false. But the reason that was such an effective way to get the electorate riled up is because people are horrified by the idea of eating their own cat or dog or someone else's cat or dog, right? And why is that? It's because we've spent enough time with those animals to know without a doubt that they do have a soul, right? And they have personalities, and they have, desires, and they have all these things. But they're no different than the cow, right? The cow also has a personality and has desires, has emotions. But most people don't spend that much time with them to know that. But it's really every living entity has a soul. And it's jiva, yes.
And Shlomo was explaining, if you want to eat the animals, you get to eat the Lord's animals.
Right. Yeah.
But he was not creating people. Say, if you cannot obtain yourself, to not eating the animal, eat the Lord and eat the heart.
Yeah.
The mother.
Yeah, exactly. And it's,
Grass and gives them
yeah, I know, the cow
innocent.
is innocent, yes.
I was listening to a talk, and the person, the Vedic scholar, was saying that if you want to eat an animal, eat someone that the genetic makeup is so different from you. So cow, they're still mammals, they're very close to us.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that if you eat fish, it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
but the genetic makeup is not so close. Is that okay?
Well, no, there's still a karmic reaction for that. I mean, because even a bacteria, even a fish, even a crab, even an insect, they all are a jiva soul that is the same quality as us. And in fact, we were once a fish, and we were once a bacteria, and so what we want to do, what is okay to do, is to eat things that can be offered to Krishna, and that's what allows that the karma of that killing is by offering that back to the Lord, right? And the thing is Krishna doesn't accept offerings of fish. Krishna doesn't accept offerings of cows. Krishna doesn't accept offerings of chicken, right? And so that karma still goes back onto us. Yes.
There's some people that live in Mongolia, and they were talking to some guru that in the winter there's no vegetables.
Mhm.
So is that okay for them to eat fish?
Yeah, I mean, that's again, I mean, it can't be offered to Krishna, so I mean, they're going to get a karmic reaction for that. Now, in times of emergency, I mean, there's I don't have the ability to say if something is okay or not, but I know that in times of emergency, things can be altered a little bit about what is permissible and what is not permissible. But if there is no emergency, then it's pretty clear cut, And so, yeah, I mean, if someone is starving, then and there's literally no other option. I mean, you have to do what you have to do to stay alive, right? Yeah.
And then, even breathing.
Right.
For insects, that's why we chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah, exactly. And chanting Hare Krishna and practicing Krishna consciousness helps mitigate all those things that just by being alive, that those karmic reactions that we get just by being alive, because everything, we walk down the street, we're stepping on little insects and bacteria are getting killed and so on and so forth. But okay, yeah. No.
The way I preach in Guadeloupe, when I explain to people to become vegetarian, and I explain them the trees or the vegetables, the trees, like a mango tree, for example, it gives you the fruits. You don't have to commit violence.
Yeah.
And I explain them, when you're eating meat, you eating the food of violence, and you become violent yourself. So you have to eat vegetable and fruits, because you don't take them by violence. You take them because they accept to give it to you. Nature accept to give it to you.
Yeah.
And the animals don't want to die, and you are forced to kill them. So we're eating, people eating meat, they eating, food of violence. So I explained to so many people in Guadeloupe, they treat people, they become vegetarian right away. And I say, you love the meat? It's not the meat you like. You like the spices you put in the meat. But if you love the meat, you are eating like the tiger and the lion. No spice. People say, yeah, you make sense about that. Let me become vegetarian.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, and so you're running out of time, but there was a few more things I wanted to say. So even in the Bible, right? Even the Christians, who most Christians eat meat, although originally the Orthodox Christians originally were vegetarians, but even in the Bible, Genesis, first book of the Bible, said God said, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth, and all the fruit trees for your food." Right? It says that. So it's not just us that are saying this, right? But I wanted to talk a little bit about the cost of what eating meat does to your psyche, right? So that to your psyche, that makes you less compassionate to others. Not just the animals that you're eating, but to other animals that you're not eating, as well as to the humans next to you, right? You're less compassionate because you're used to this idea of taking a sentient being's life in order to improve your life. And a lot of times just because you want to eat it, not because you need to, right? There was a man that came here, and he was an Indian man too. So he claims that he didn't know any lifelong vegetarians that were strong, which I said, that's ridiculous. I actually used you, Prajuna, as an example, because you happened to walk by. I said, look at that boy there. I said, he's a lifelong vegetarian. He's got muscles, and he's big and strong. And
The elephants.
Elephants.
yeah, and elephants,
Cows.
exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Horses.
Exactly.
Horsepower.
There's so many examples, right? And so, but to your psyche, it just makes you just not as compassionate to others. And I know from my own experience, when I stopped eating meat completely, all of a sudden one day I'm walking down the street, and I'm walking very strangely, and I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing, but I'm noticing, like, why are you walking this way? And then I realized I was trying to not step on the ants, right? And I had never done that before. I never went out of my way to step on the ants. I just didn't think about it. I just walked. But now suddenly, once I had stopped eating meat, after a while, suddenly I'm more conscious. Oh, you know what? I don't want to step on these ants. They're just doing their ant business, And so it's a way that your mind, your psyche sort of changes when you stop eating meat, or you don't ever eat it. And then there's one thing that this all boils down to is karma, right? So we know karma, the idea of karma exists in everywhere, right? In science, we have Newton's third law of motion, right? Which is for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. In the Bible, we have, let's see, this is from Galatians in the Bible. It says, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life," right? So that's what it says in the Bible. And for us, we have the entire third chapter of Bhagavad Gita entitled Karma Yoga, right? Which is all about, the entire Bhagavad Gita is about the workings of karma as well, but specifically the third chapter, right? And so one thing that happens when there's wholesale slaughter of animals is war, right? And we have so many wars all the time in this world. So I want to read this nice quote from Srila Prabhupada. This is from a purport in the 4th canto. It's actually coming up in the next chapter. In this age of Kali, the propensity for mercy is almost nil. Consequently, there is always fighting and wars between men and nation. Men do not understand that because they unrestrictedly kill so many animals, they must also be slaughtered like animals in big wars. This is very much evident in the Western countries. In the West, slaughterhouses are maintained without restriction, and therefore every 5th or 10th year there is a big war in which countless people are slaughtered, even more cruelly than the animals. Sometimes during war, soldiers keep their enemies in concentration camps and kill them in very cruel ways. These reactions are brought about by unrestricted animal killing in the slaughterhouses and by hunters in the forest. Proud demoniac persons do not know the laws of nature or the laws of God. Consequently, they unrestrictedly kill poor animals, not caring for them at all. Killing is completely prohibited. One is not accepted as a bona fide student in this movement unless he promises to follow the 4 regulative principles. No animal killing, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. This Krishna consciousness movement is the only means by which the sinful activities of men in Kali Yuga can be counteracted. And then this from a lecture, let's see. No, I'm gonna have to, we're running out of time, so I'm gonna skip that one, but here's another one. This is from a lecture in Honolulu in '76. Every 10 or 15 years, there is a big war, a wholesale slaughterhouse of kind. But these rascals, they do not see it, that by the laws of karma, action must have its reaction. You are killing innocent cows and other animals. Nature will take revenge. Just wait. As soon as the time is right, nature will gather all these rascals and slaughter them. Finished. They'll fight amongst themselves, Protestants and Catholics, Russia and America, this one and that one. It's going on. Why? That is nature's law. Tit for tat. You have killed, now you will kill yourselves. Yeah. So I wanted to tell one more story, hopefully can get it in there. And that's the story of Mrigari the hunter, right? You guys know this. So there was a hunter and out hunting, and he wouldn't kill the animals he hunted all the way. He would only sort of like wound them and watch them suffer for a long time before they died. He would half kill them, is what he said. And one day Narada Muni, who's also in the verse that we read today, Narada Muni, the great sage, he comes by and he sees all these half-killed animals around the forest, and he's just totally, just upset by this because it's horrible. And so he finds the hunter and he says, why are you leaving them half-killed? You should at least like kill them all the way if you're going to kill them. And for the hunter, he said, well, this is how I've been taught to do it. This is how my family taught me to do it. He enjoyed to see the animals suffering. And so Narada Muni told him, no, this is not the way. You shouldn't be doing this. In fact, you should just give this whole thing up. You should give up hunting altogether. And the hunter said, well, how am I going to feed myself then? How am I going to take care of my family? And Narada Muni said, don't worry. They said, you just stop, and I'll make sure that you're fed. I will give you food. I'll make sure. And the hunter said, okay, well, if you're gonna, make sure that I have the means to take care of myself and my family, fine, I will stop. And Narada Muni told him, why don't you go sit on the banks of the Ganges River and chant Hare Krishna? And so he did. And so as Narada Muni was leaving, he told the villagers in the town, there's a pure devotee chanting by the Ganges River. And so the people came by to see the pure devotee, and they saw him sitting there chanting, and they said, wow. I said that Mrigari the hunter, he's stopped killing animals, and now he's just sitting by the river and chanting. And so they started bringing him so many different foods, so many, rice and beautiful preparations. They started bringing him so much food. And the food started, the food started piling up, and it became too much. and so the hunter was thinking, gosh, why is Narada Muni sending so much food? Like, I can't eat all this. So he started distributing this food to everybody else. And so there he was. He wasn't hunting anymore. He was chanting Hare Krishna, and he was distributing food that had been offered to the Lord. And so he ended up becoming like a perfect devotee, a perfect Vaishnava. So sometime later, Narada Muni and his friend, and Narada Muni said, I have a disciple in this area. Let's go check on him and see how he's doing. And so they see him in the distance, and he's kind of like coming towards them, but he's like hopping around real weird, and they're like, what's going on? And they realize that the hunter, the reason he's hopping around so weird as he's coming towards them is he's trying on the ants. And Narada Muni's friend, he was just amazed. He said, wow. He said, before this hunter, he was not even killing mercifully these animals. He was just like half killing them, watching them suffer. And now he won't even step on the ants, right? And that's because his psyche was able to change by the stopping of eating meat and by the chanting of Hare Krishna. And so I always loved that story. And then it also reminds me of when I was like trying to stop stepping on the ants too. I was like, hey, I did that too, and I stopped eating meat. So the whole moral of all of this verse and all these different lessons is that there are consequences to killing other entities. And even if you're offering these things in a sacrifice, right? The problem with that is we don't know how to do those sacrifices properly. Even if we did know how to do them properly, they're not necessary, right? The sacrifice for the sage is chanting Hare Krishna. And so I guess I'll just end there. And if there's any comments or questions, yes. Yeah.
So like you say, for every cow that gets killed,
Mhm.
they have to take birth for every hair in that cow's body.
Yeah.
So for hamburger, there's a whole bunch of different
Right.
cows. So forget it.
Yeah, because it's not even like when you get a hamburger at
even one.
McDonald's, it's not even just one cow, right? Because they kill so many cows and mix them all together.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
horrible.
yeah, Commodore.
Well, I think one of the reasons there's so many meat eaters in society is because it's just too easy.
Yeah,
All you have to do is go to the store and buy it. All the dirty work is done. If
yeah,
every meat eater had to kill, skin, butcher,
yeah,
you'd have a high percentage of vegetarians.
yeah. And most people, there's hunters in my family and stuff, and most people that I know that actually do hunt animals and they do all that, they have so much more respect for the loss of that life, and so much more understanding for that than just an average person that goes to the grocery store to buy the meat. Yeah.
The human body is not designed to process the meat like a animal eating animal. A tiger or a lion stomach acid is 9 times more acidic than a human, and it causes all these health problems. Humans are dying by the hundreds of thousands every single year in the United States because they're eating too much meat, and
Yeah.
that's not being addressed ever.
Yeah, I mean, and just look at the differences in our teeth, right? That's the most glaring difference, right? A tiger, I don't have big tiger teeth, they be sticking out.
Canines.
And Prabhupada said you need to drink alcohol to help digest meat.
Wow, I didn't hear that. That's interesting,
And then, meat is cheap because it's government subsidized.
right? Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. I mean, I think everybody, oh, yeah,
Go ahead.
okay. You first and then.
Okay, so my dad was a big hunter, bird hunter. And I remember him saying, look at it, it's just a beautiful, goose. And I said, but Dad, it's dead.
Yeah, yeah. It was a beautiful goose. Not anymore. Yeah,
I was gonna add that when you eat meat, it makes you angry.
Yeah.
35 years ago or 30 years ago, I was very heavy meat eater. So I graduated from Loma Linda University before I went to USC in Los Angeles.
And Loma Linda is all vegetarian. The whole campus is vegetarian. There's 70 Adventist Christians. They don't eat meat. But anyway, so I realized I stopped eating meat. I was becoming calmer and not getting angry. And then recently I found out there's a book called Anger. It's by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, very famous. He talks about that. That another reason that people are arguing, the raging wars are going on because of that anger too.
Yeah.
When you consume meat, it's not really a lot of physical strength. The mind is very busy with all the anger and anxiety that you pick up from that animal.
Yeah, because when that animal's killed, they're in a state of anxiety. They have adrenaline.
Yeah,
going
like,
through
just
them.
like us.
Yeah.
Somebody's waiting to kill us. That imagine.
Yeah, and we also
Yeah.
believe that the consciousness of whoever's cooking goes into that food, right?
Yeah.
The consciousness of when you're killing that animal and then preparing it too. I mean, that's a much different consciousness than preparing, a vegetarian meal. That you offer to Krishna, right? Because and the consciousness of what we're doing here is we're making these food things, these food stuffs, with the idea we want to serve them to God, right? So, all right, I think, well, and then you got one more, or no? Okay, all right. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.